So I received this message for someone, and so it's just more like okay. Let me just go straight to the point. So this is a screenshot of scan he did on his Peugeot 307 with 2.0 liter EW10J4 engine with manual transmission. That's phase one. So um what he described to me on the WhatsApp chat was, um, engine stalling, hesitation at cold start, and then scan also showed this on the screen. So every diagnosis he has done, or people he has taken the vehicle to, done their diagnosis, and they are suggesting or recommending replacement of the engine ECU. Okay, so now from what I could see on this screen, let me work with what I could see on the screen, apart from the description of the symptoms, which I may come back to later. And from what I could see on this screen, your car stalling or not accelerating has nothing to do with the MTB, motorized auto body, since yours came with or has it. So your motorized auto body is okay, even though you didn't mention it. But I just want to point that out as well, in case maybe somebody else has suggested replacing it as well, or probably you've done that in the past. To me, there's no need for to replace it if you have done that. If you have done that before, I'll go and take back the old one. There's nothing wrong with it, obviously, unless maybe the scan showed before that it was faulty. Now, from what I could see here, it's showing three injectors are getting or having communication issue with the engine ECU. Cylinder 1, 2, and 4, except cylinder 3. Okay, now what can cause this? About three things. One, the injectors themselves. Two, wiring connection between the injectors and the engine ECU and the fuse box. Now how many things? I mentioned one, the injectors; two, wiring connections; and three is the engine ECU or the BSM. So it depends on how you want to do it. You can make it 5 to make it easier. The injectors, the wiring connections, the engine ECU, the fuse box. Yeah, wiring injectors, wiring connection, engine ECU, fuse box. So 4. Now, the reason why I want to explain by pointing out this, it will help you to narrow down your diagnosis from what you have done already, so you know what not to bother to go to again. The injectors, that is what Nigerians call locally, what's that name again? Nozzles, right? So the injectors the fuel injectors, at least petrol fuel injectors, they have only 2 wiring connections on them, and that is positive and negative. No other one. Well, at least the one I know. Especially, okay, let's focus on your engine. They only have 2 connections to it, positive and negative, and on all 4 of them. And each of those 4 have 2 separate connections to them. That is, those positive and negative are all separate on 2 wiring connectors on each of those 4 injectors. Now, the positive supply to the 4 injectors comes from the fuse box. in the engine bay or engine compartment, what we call what's it called, BSM, which is another name for it. So now it comes with only one supply line. That's one wire will take voltage from the fuse box and then take it to those injectors. Somewhere along the line, before it now gets to that injectors, the wire will split. The additional 4 wires will now be attached on that single thick one wire from the fuse box and now spread it to these 4 injectors. 1, 2, 3, 4. So only one wire brings or supply voltage, positive voltage, to the fuel injectors constantly. With once ignition is on, it stays like that. At least once you crank the engine, it stays like that. But once ignition is on, it's supposed to come up. That's what I know about at least most of the injection system in Peugeot vehicles. So now, what now makes it the injectors to spray fuel and stop, spray and stop, is the negative supply. That's what now determines when it opens and closes, not the positive. The positive stays on permanently. It's the negative that now opens and closes, working with the timing of the engine. So, and where does that negative supply comes from? From the engine ECU. Remember, the positive supply comes from the fuse box, the BSM. Let me just use that at least. For Peugeot users, they already know that. So it comes from the BSM, positive supply. Why the negative supply now comes from the engine ECU. Now, depending on the injection system, the negative supply from the engine ECU varies. The systems vary. Some have only one single wire, just like the positive one that comes from the fuse box. Some has only one single wire that will come from the engine ECU and now spread to the injectors. So they all open and close at the same time. While some, mostly the modern ones, just to reduce waste of fuel, because not all cylinders will spark. The spark will not. That won't spark on all cylinders at every time. Depending on the BDC, TDB, BDC, TDC. Top dead center, bottom dead center. So, and the time, follow that 4 cycles of especially your engine. So in your case, so the ECU now supply one wire individually to each of those injectors. In your case, in your own system, like I said, there are some Peugeot system that has only one. So the ECU will always be we will not identify each cylinder separately. But in your case, it has one negative supply from the ECU to cylinder 1, fuel injector. Same thing, cylinder 2, it has its own wire from the ECU. So they are all independent of each other. So from what you could see on this screen, once you understand what I've explained, it means at least you now know the issue. As in, it's very clear. You don't even need a specialist to now explain. That the ECU is reporting that 3 of the injectors are not working or properly, or something is wrong. In other words, either there is a problem with those 3 fuel injectors, right? Because remember, it's not one wire that is supplying negative supply to them. So in that case, it can't be able to tell you. If it was one wire, it will tell you all 4 of them are bad. You won't even identify any one. It will just tell you fuel injectors bad. But in this case, one injector is working well. One has a good fuel injector or has a good wiring connection, or the ECU, the inside the part of the ECU that controls it is okay. Now this cannot be the fuse box. That's why I want to cut out the fuse box in DK, because remember, the fuse box supplies only, you just pull only one wire to supply positive current or voltage. So if the fuse box is the problem, it will be reporting the 4 injectors, because even that number 3 that is not listed here would have been mentioned as well. But because it didn't mention number 3, means the power supply, the voltage or positive power supply from the fuse box or the PSM is coming and doing its work. So the problem now is with the negative, or with those 3 injectors, or with the wiring connection. So how do you now identify which one? Now, for what you explained to me on the chat, WhatsApp, you actually did a video, audio message. What you explained was you've also changed the 4 injectors, the 4 of them, you're swapping different, and they still keep repeating these same 3 injectors on the same cylinders that are bad. All right, so meaning the injectors are not the problem. So which leaves how many things now to rule out? 2 things: the wiring connectors to those injectors and the engine ECU. Now, how do we identify or confirm if the problem is the wiring connectors or wiring harnesses? Or let's just say the wires. In other words, I'm not talking about the 3 negative wires that come from the engine ECU to this. How do you confirm? Is to rule that one out, you have to do something we call continuity test. I don't know how good you are technically with car repairs, or how good the electrician that is doing this or the technician that is doing this diagnosis for you is. They will have to run a test on each of these cylinders, cylinder 1, 2, and 4. Because I can see here, it didn't show cylinder 3 here. So it repeated 4 twice, and 2. If I repeated each of those 3. So it has to do a continuity test on the negative supply on cylinder 1 to the engine ECU to be sure that it's working, there's a free flow of voltage, current on that line. And most importantly, to also confirm that there is each of these 3, 1, 2, 4 of those wires are not touching any other wire. Maybe there's not they didn't peel up somewhere and they are not touching the negative positive side or something else that could cause a breach and then start giving wrong signal or start messing up the engine ECU or the proper working of those injectors. And how do you do that? Sometimes the easiest way to do is to pull out the entire wire. However, it could also be, for me, I better not even bother pulling out the entire wire, because it's a very straight line of power supply from the fuse box to this. If you look at your engine EW10J4, the injectors on the fuel rail are in front of the engine, that they are facing the radiator. So in other words, you see those 4 wiring connectors. So from there, they go straight to the fuse box. You see the connection there. So you don't necessarily have to start peeling off the entire wire. Unlike the THP, the VTI engine, that their fuel injectors are at the back. So most times you can as well pull out the entire wire, because you have to remove so many things to access, to even disconnect them from the injector. So this one is much easier. That's how I will do it. I will do a continuity on each of those wires, those 3 wires, negative supply on the ECU, and then confirm. Once I confirm, okay, the ECU, there's a free flow, the communication is getting from the wiring connector on this injector 1 to the engine ECU. Yes, it's coming to that wiring connector on the engine ECU. Then I also confirm that it's not touching any of the engine, that if it's pin 1 on the wiring connector on the engine ECU, I will check the remaining pins on that connector to be sure that none of them is reporting that is also reading from that injector. Because remember, it's only one wire that is supposed to come from the engine ECU to that particular fuel injector as a negative supply. So if any wire or any pin on that wiring connector on the ECU start to also show that it's also getting signal or communicating with that particular injector, you are checking the negative supply, then there's a problem with the wiring connector. Something is bridging something or touching somewhere. So you have to call it. You say you have to take your time. Yeah, you call it. It may not be. To me, it's not that strenuous. It's just about focus, cut off all distraction. It's something you can do within 2-3 hours and conclude or less. All you need to do is cut off distraction. Switch off your phone if you have to. Anybody talking to you should just walk away so I can focus. It's electrical and very, very sensitive. Confirm all I'm telling you so that you will know. Once you confirm that the issue is not the wire, then you don't need any scan again to tell you to change your engine ECU. So that if you are buying another engine ECU, you will know for a fact. You don't even need anybody again. You don't need any scan tool again to tell you or any person to advise or recommend. You have ruled out. That's why I call it elimination method. Now you are going beyond electronic scanning or diagnosis. You have to now manually diagnose and now figure it out. Yes, the engine ECU is telling you something is wrong with whatever that is either controlling these injectors from the engine ECU. Inside the engine ECU, that something is wrong already inside it, or that these injectors there are actually bad, or that the wiring connection between these 3 components are bad. But now you've ruled out the injector, so what's remaining now is the wiring connection. And also the reason why you need to rule out the wiring connectors between these 2 components, or the not even connector, the wiring connection now, not connectors only, is because if you now realize truly there's nothing wrong with your wires and you need to change this ECU, you're also very certain, you will be very sure that to put another ECU, you are not going back to this same problem. Because let's assume there is a wrong connection somewhere on that wiring connectors and you didn't identify it, reverse it, or fix it well. What do you think is going to happen to the next ECU you are going to put? Which, since the other one has been damaged, and it's which most likely could be a wrong connection that damaged it. So if you put another one with the same wrong connection, what do you think will happen? So that's why you have to take your time. Personally, in fact, if I were you, tell your electrician, your mechanic, it doesn't necessarily have to be an electrician. Your mechanic can do that too. So I don't need to waste much time or trying to spend so much. Let you pull out your wire completely. The entire engine wiring harness, all the wires you could see on your engine, pull them out from the engine to the fuse board, the BSM, and the engine ECU. Luckily, your 307 is CAN bus, meaning the connection to the fuse bus is just plug and play. So you just wiring connectors. There's no permanent connection to your fuse bus. So all you need to disconnect the plugs, it comes out, disconnect the engine ECU, is off. You pull out all the connection and the connectors that are attached on the sensors, the electrical components on the engine. Your engine wiring harness is off. So you do all these tests on the ground. While you are doing it, you now check peel off all the wires if you have to. All those things they use in bounding the wires to protect and other. Confirm that no wire peeled off somewhere, became naked and is touching something or touching the body of the engine, which is already a negative. So make sure everything is okay. If there is any wrong connection, reverse it. The next one is your fan still factory connected? If it's bypassed, reverse it. put it back to factory connection. If your engine is overheating, deal with it. Don't go and buy. See, all those things people do on their fan, bypassing it, making it affects the engine ECU. Remember, it's your engine ECU that are controlling your fan. So as you are bypassing, you do all those things, you are not helping the ECU. So your engine, I'm not saying it happened in your case. I'm not saying if it is, and other people who are watching this video and claiming the Nigeria is hotter than sun. You know, you are likely going to have this similar issue. Most time engine ECU fails when there's a wrong connection. You kill it instantly. Sometimes in the process of starting to diagnose, people are doing trial and error, joining wire, disconnecting, all those things. It may harm it. It will cause a surge in the ECU. Over time, eventually the ECU will pack up. So it's possible that what killed this ECU could be a wrong connection done before, or maybe a surge or something that produced one kind of surge that affected it. So over time, eventually it decided to pack up when you didn't expect, or you are not ready for it. I may not even be doing your ownership. Maybe it will happen before you own the vehicle. But the failure now came up now. So make sure everything comes back to factory before you can now know, okay, your wiring connections are intact. If the wiring connector have been bush out, wire cut here and there, do all these things, they tap current from there, thought another one, cut off this one, and you are not sure it can be reversed, then look for another wire that have not been tampered. Buy another one for your engine and for your wiring system. Not all 307 with EW10J4 engine have the same wiring harness. Identical. No. Remember, some have motorized throttle body, some have the manual throttle body. So yours is motorized throttle body. So it means if you are buying, you have to look for one wire that will come with the connection for the motorized throttle body. So those are the things. So it's not I know you probably might be expecting me to tell you, okay, no, go ahead, it's your engine ECU. You know, then there's no difference between me and the quack that do try and error. This is how I do my diagnosis. That's why most times I charge people, and people will expect, why would I charge this side? Because I don't rely on just what scanner says, especially when the cars being used in Nigeria, Peugeot vehicles specifically. You know, I know what people do on the electrical wiring system. So you have to go beyond that, especially on a severe case like this, until you do that, so you don't have to start wasting money unnecessarily. So that's how, now you've ruled out the injectors, like you explained, you swap in another one and the same faults keep coming up. So meaning it can't be those injectors anymore. So the next thing remaining, fuse box. But now from the scanner is showing cylinder 3 is getting power supply very well, both from the fuse box and the engine ECU. And since I've explained to you that the fuse box supply just one wire down to the, to those injectors, you know, have somewhere before the injector is now spread into 4. So it means every other one is intact. That's the fuse box is supply. Unless you want to tell me that somewhere where with the wire spread, 3 wires were cut off completely, one remain, which is very unlikely. But then, like I said, it all depends on the condition of your wire. You have to strip and confirm that everything, there's no cut and join or anything. You know, you can also use your multimeter. There's a way you can do it. Once you identify which of the pin on the wiring connector on injectors that goes straight to the fuse box, or that is the positive supply to the injectors, you can test it with multimeter, test the negative. You don't need to test it on the negative supply on the, on the connectors and injector. Just test it on the battery or something. Switch on ignition. If it's there, it will give you that 12 volts. You know. You see, all this depends on whoever that is doing the diagnosis. If I were the one doing this thing for you, it's a day for me to tell you what's the problem. The only thing that may delay is if I don't have time to pull out your engine wiring harness. Other than that, I mean, I'll be done. So pull out confirm that every connection on your wire, do the voltage test on those connectors. Confirm that each of those 4 wires on or connectors on the 4 injectors, that the voltage supply is coming fully there. It's very easy to do. Get your multimeter, find the which of the wire that is the positive supply, connect one end, turn your multimeter to 20 volts, connect one lead of the multimeter to that particular connector or pin on the connector. Then take the second, or that's the negative lead or wire of the multimeter, touch it to the body or the battery negative supply, whichever one. Switch on ignition. It will tell you truly if that is your if all the 4 wires are there are getting positive supply. Then don't bother about your fuse box. Personally, in fact, your fuse box is already working well. That's not the issue. It's only the wire now to confirm that where that wire split somewhere. Like I said, one wire will come out, but some along the line it will split into 4, and that goes to the engine. So make sure that these 3, where that place is, still have their connection to that joint where the force, where they are attached to the single wire that goes to the fuse box. So once you do that, if I just focus on the wires and the engine ECU, rule out the wires, then get another ECU. Rule out the wire is just to also prevent, if you are eventually buying ECU, for another one from failing. So that you know that, okay, there's no such, nothing is doing that. So I believe this will not, if you don't understand what I explained, give it to your technician. He will be able to understand this, unless person doesn't understand English or some of these technical terms I'm using. But if somebody who is I would say who understands English and be able to, you will know what all this is I'm talking about. So it's not a big issue. Worst case scenario is replacing the ECU. If you are replacing the ECU, then buy a complete kit. If you are buying used one or buy new one, which in that case you have to buy only the ECU. If you are buying complete kit, you are looking at buying only the key. No, if I buy complete kit, the used one, then I buy engine ECU, the BSI, and the key. It's much easier that way. I don't know. Personally, if I were you, if you have the money, buy the new one if you can find it. With the new one, all you need to do is to program it, tell it the transmission you want. The one thing with the used one is most time when you find in the market will be the one that comes with automatic. Yours is manual. For what I could see on your VIN, it's manual transmission. So getting a manual transmission one may not be that easy. Complete kit, if I buy a complete kit, it's possible you might find, maybe first market shop you enter, you find it, but they are usually not that easily available. So in that case, if you now mount it, you just be telling, in fact, it won't even start. The car won't even start because the BSI is already programmed to start with automatic, so it won't start unless somebody have to go and start reconfiguring and so many things. But the manual one is plug and play if you get manual. So if you are changing the ECU, if you buy only the manual, so it's already there configured. So all you need to do is plug and play. For brand new, you just configured it to work with your BSI unit. That's all. So, but at least you have an option. It's not, in fact, your case is not even a big deal. It's just a question of one, make out time to inspect your wiring harness. 2, then budget or work towards buying another ECU. That's all. Even if you can't afford it now, it's a good thing to know this is my problem and this is what it will cost to fix it. I can't afford it now, fine. You leave the fact, when you can, you fix it. Rather, you don't know. Like you explained to me in the chat, you spend so much taking it from one person to the other, replacing one part or the other. If you had known from the beginning this is your issue, the way I explained it to you, you have more peace of mind whenever you can. Probably by now you would have replaced this thing long ago and you won't be remembering this issue. So that's why it's get the diagnosis right that first time. Then money matter. Money comes and goes no matter what. So eventually you have to spend. And it will be a pass. Most later, I won't even remember you spent so much on so and so things trying to fix your car. But if the issue remains there, you keep taking for one person, blowing all your money, then that can be very, very frustrating. So I hope this helps. So any other person, if you have such issues like this, don't assume that I didn't do this one for free. So don't think, oh, I'm Father Christmas. No, he spent 2,000 naira for me to give him this expert advice. And from what you are listening now, you could tell it's not a waste. If you spend that 2,000 naira, it will save you so much headache, stress, and all those things that he went through. But if you feel the 2,000 naira is too much, or I'm being wicked to go through this explanation instead of doing it for free, I'm charging money for this. So why would I? You rather spend 50, 80, 100,000 doing try and error than pay this 2,000. Hey, knock yourself out. It's up to you. So I hope this helps, and good luck.